credibility, promoting media literacy. Oh, the way to go. Oh, the way to go. ComWeek for creativity, reciprocity, for effectivity.
It does not design its own pattern matching conventions, but depends on the design decision of its developers. Where then does this lead us? My argument so far has been, if it is intelligent, it is not artificial, and if it is artificial, it is not intelligent. Artificial intelligence is not intelligent because of its privation of self-consciousness and self-volition. That's why the question it raises is, where does this lead us? The submission in the preceding section of this paper neither diminishes nor denies the astounding accomplishment of science and technology in the area of computational informatics. It only serves to call attention to a misnomer conventionally taken for granted. This misnomer, if ignored, will have, and in fact is already having, consequences in the arena of ethics in which we human beings find ourselves. The arena of interrelationship. The pertinence of these remarks stems from the fact that artificial intelligence is a tool and not a substitute for the human person. Its use without prudence bears the huge potential of weakening interpersonal relationship. However, it can be used properly if we understood that communication is not just dissemination of information. Communication is essentially an act of love in which heart speaks to heart, cor ad cor loquitur, to use the motto of John Newman. Reduced to mere dissemination of information, it precipitously degenerates into dangerous misinformation, into a powerful propaganda machinery of negative social engineering. But where does artificial intelligence lead the church in her work of evangelization? Or, as some cynics of religion might say, or might ask, why bother on evangelization instead of bothering oneself with the task of development? In order to find an answer to the question, there is need to understand what development is and how the church's task of evangelization is itself a participation in the task of development. It takes a proper understanding of development and a proper understanding of evangelization to understand the church's mission of evangelization. To understand that that mission is not unrelated to, but includes development of peoples. In the social doctrine of Catholicism, the task of evangelization and the task of development are inseparable. Pope Paul VI's admonition in his landmark encyclical Populorum Progressio and in his teaching in the post-synodal exhortation Evangelii Nunciandi asks us to see the connection. In the former, that is, in Populorum Progressio, Paul Paul VI prophetically challenges the world to see development as anthropocentric. That is, it must be at the service of the human being, instead of development reductively conceived as abundance of profit, gadgets, and infrastructure. In the latter, Evangelion, he highlights the fact that the human person is in need of God, even as he or she aspires to better relationship. So, to engage in the task of development is to bear witness to the gospel. The human being is in search of supreme fulfillment. This search for supreme fulfillment leaves him restless and propels him to conceive and execute operations which, rightly or erroneously, he believes will make him attain this supreme fulfillment. The quest for supreme fulfillment leads the human person to work for development, searching for the highest good. In all this, the human being is often tempted to seek supreme fulfillment in creaturely and finite things. But nothing creaturely, nothing finite would satisfy this thirst for supreme fulfillment. Fallen into the temptation of seeking supreme fulfillment in creatures, the human being tends to conceive development solely in terms of political and economic power, often acquired through foul means. And we have seen those foul means in the history of our country. Those foul means have been military coups and rigged elections. Development is thus seen exclusively in terms of economic indices of supply, demand, production, consumption, and infrastructure. St. Augustine of Hippo understood from the drama of his own restlessness the futility of seeking supreme fulfillment in material acquisitions and famous accomplishments alone, when he wrote his famous words at the beginning of his confessions, saying, "You, Lord, have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." Thomas Aquinas, a commentator on Aristotle and Augustine, understood the same fact, expressing the Greek philosopher's philosophy of happiness as espoused in the latter's Nicomachean Ethics. Using the language of Augustine, Aquinas would postulate that happiness is to be found in God. Understood and synthesized, the insights of these great thinkers are showing us that the quest for development is ultimately a manifestation of the human quest for supreme fulfillment in God. The human being is not satisfied with gadgets, even if gadgets make his life more comfortable. His supreme fulfillment is not in the material things he desires, produces, acquires, possesses, and consumes. It is found in meaning, and the meaning is found in God. Evangelization is proclamation of good news, and what Christianity preaches as good news is that the God whom human beings seek, often without knowing that he is the one they seek in their restlessness, has fully revealed himself in Jesus Christ, his Son. When I was putting down these thoughts, it didn't occur to me that on this day we would read about the encounter between St. Paul and the Arabian guides, the first reading of this Mass. They were looking for God, but when he pointed out to them that the God they were looking for has fully revealed himself in Jesus Christ crucified, reason, they laughed at him, and that was the end of the discussion. The good news is that life is not meaningless but meaningful, and that the meaning is in God, who, in the past mystery of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, his Son, shows to humanity what Peter declared before the religious and political leaders of the house of Israel, when he said, "Of all the names in the world given to men, this name, the name of Jesus, is the only one by which we can be saved." Mechanical informatics is an immense database necessary in a knowledge-driven civilization, as restoration of immortality lost by ignorance of God on the part of man, by the restoration of knowledge of God by God himself in the incarnation of his Son. If development is about the human quest for goodness, which is ultimately a quest for God, since God is the one in whom the supreme fulfillment the human spirit so ardently desires is to be found, evangelization is the dissemination of the good news that the God humanity desires has found humanity in his Son who became human. It is the proclamation that a God who loves humanity has fully communicated himself to humanity in Jesus of Nazareth. To be noted here is that the evangelization is not mere communication of data. It is God communicating himself as love. It is divine self-communication inviting humanity to make a U-turn from the destructive path of self-worship to the ennobling path of friendship with and adoration of a God who so loved the world that he gave his only Son, not to condemn, but to save the world. It is a self-communication of a God who invites every human being to love one's neighbor in the collaborative task of building a civilization of love. Artificial intelligence, or mathematized informatics, as I prefer to call it, can be used to promote a civilization of love. Whether or not this will be the case depends not on machines and gadgets lacking in self-consciousness and self-volition, but on human beings who, in their own self-consciousness and self-volition, are intelligent and free. Human beings who, in their intelligence and freedom, desire to love and be loved, and possess the capacity to love and be loved, who work for their own good by working for the common good, and who work for the common good by working for their own good. I conclude. Communication is not just a technical operation. It is existential. It is an act of love, and God is love. Artificial intelligence can become a means of communication, a means of bridging gaps and fostering love, when those who invent and deploy it work for their good by working for the common good, and work for the common good by working for their own good. The increasingly technocratic mindset of our time must be guided by a sapiential mindset that teaches not just the best way to live, but most importantly, the best way to live together. It is possible to travel from Lagos to Tokyo and back without saying a word to anyone. I can, from the comfort of my room, book my flight, hotel accommodation, rent a car, retrieve its ignition key using my credit card, have a good time, and return to my point of departure. But there is a gap which technology cannot bridge, despite increasingly sophisticated means of exchanging information. Surely, this has elevated quality of life, but biological life is said not existential, where interpersonal relationship is absent and communication as cor ad corloquitur, heart speaks to heart, is absent, where there is no interpersonal relationship. In the absence of interpersonal relationship, humanity runs the risk of self-annihilation. Its technological accomplishments can easily become weapons of mass destruction. Technology, like any human accomplishment, has the capacity to enable and ennoble humanity. But again, our conduct and accomplishments diminish us when they are depersonalizing. And they become depersonalizing when they are removed from the sphere of morality. Technology becomes destructive when its conception, invention, and deployment are at odds with the common good. It becomes antithetical to common good when it is solely regulated by material norms of possibility, profitability, and pleasurability. That is what happens when technique and ethics are separated. But that is not just true of technology. Technology without morality is as dangerous as politics without morality. Politics, in the true sense of the word, is inseparable from morality. When it is separated from morality, it is not politics, it is banditry. For in every human being is the natural inclination to the good. In every human being is a voice that whispers, do good, avoid evil. But Christianity goes further than that to teach that this God is neither a philosophical construct, nor a creature of the powerful, nor an opium of the poor, nor an image created by human beings intent on satisfying their libido. This God is a person who relates with human beings as persons and who has fully revealed himself in Jesus, his Son, who gave his disciples a mandate. The mandate Jesus gave his disciples is, go out to the whole world, proclaim the gospel to all creation. Mark chapter 16, verse 15. And the world of our time includes cyberspace. Therefore, the missionary mandate compels the church to go into cyberspace and preach, to go into the world of what is called artificial intelligence, to provide an ethical surveillance of cyberspace, and to make values of the gospel present in the world of science and technology. Thank you for listening.
For ability, for community, for connectivity, compatibility, promoting media literacy.